Welcome back. Time now for the news review. You know how we do it. We're about to get into the most important, the most pertinent stories for you from the newspapers. But before we get into those, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Every morning around this time I mention their name. Why? It's because a lot of people are going down with prostate-related issues, fertility-related issues. And they sit and wait till things come to a head. You don't have to do that. Simple medical routine checks can keep you alive for a long time. And that's why this morning I'm proffering for you Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. If you're a man, you check your prostate once in a while, you've not checked this year, or you've never even checked before, just make your way to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They'll check you out for free. Mention the show, mention that you saw this ad, and they'll do it for you for free. If you're a woman, you are concerned about your fertility, and you want certain things to happen, make your way to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And here's where you can locate them across Ghana. Here in Accra, they are in Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. That's where you can locate them. Then in Kumasi, Chronum Abuehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade, they can be found at the Anaji Estates, and then there's Temma Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama and Zama. If you'd like to call them, which I suggest strongly that you do, the lines are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But joining us for the news review this morning, Maxwell Lukutor. He is parliamentary candidate-elect for the NDC in the South Tong area. He joins us for a conversation. Max, good morning. You'd have to unmute, Maxwell.
Good morning, Ben. How are you doing?
I'm okay. We're alive. We're healthy. A few days ago, I was under the weather. I'm better today, so I'm very grateful to God for that. How about you? How are you doing? And how are the members of your constituency, the constituency you'll be representing in the 2024 elections? What's the latest you can share with us?
We are not good. I'm sure your cameras have been on the ground. We saw a lot of them on ground. Some even came to do donations. We must be grateful to Joy News for the good coverage you are giving to us. And I hear you are also putting resources together to be able to hit the ground. We'll be waiting for you to come down. We are grateful to City News for coming around. We are grateful to TV XYZ. We are grateful to Wezo TV, Rafimes, Lukuze, Magdan, Latter-day Saints, Ibrahim Mahama, and the darling boy himself, John Dramani Mahama, who came first of all to give donations to us, to give to the people. We are grateful to all donors who have come to our aid. Yesterday, I saw Stephen Appiah and his crew through the collaboration with Joy News on the ground. A lot of people are coming. I've heard of several of them, but I've not personally met some of them. People come and they directly want to go to the people. Arise Ghana came, they went around. All other groups are coming. We are so grateful to them. On behalf of my people, especially in South Tong, North Tong, Central Tong, and all around and along the river banks, we want to say we are grateful to Ghana, especially the individuals, corporate bodies who have heard our plight and are coming to our aid. We are so grateful to them. A friend in need is actually a friend indeed. We are so grateful to them. But the issue is that it is not over, because this is not a day's issue. Thankfully, the water is receding, because maybe the level of water we have in Akosombo Dam has gone down a little bit, and the level of spillage has also gone down. But it really does not mean that is the end of it. People have lost their livelihood, their cages, their nets, fishing nets, their workshops, their farms. So many things have gone down the drain, and it's not something we can recover from anytime soon. So we pray and hope that these things will not cease after a day or two. For about a month and over 2 months, 3 months, people are going to be distressed, because the hunger that is going to loom, or that is looming, we can foresee. Because when you go to give the little to the people who are directly affected, you hear so many complaints from other people who have not been directly affected, especially with their homes. But their farms have gone down. Their fishing equipment and everything is down. And so you realize that the pain is real, not only directly to the people whose home have been affected, but indirectly affecting so many people. So people should come to our aid. The critical thing we need is water. And please, if you are coming, as for the bottled water, many people are not used to drinking bottled water. We need the sachet water. It should come in drones and in quantities so that we can give to every home. Every home is looking for water because the water is bad and we can't even be too sure those who are packaging around, except those who are using borehole water to do the sachet water. Those are the ones we can trust. But beyond that, those who are getting directly from the Volta River, we cannot be too sure. So please, if you are coming around and you are bringing water, be minded that we need more of the sachet water than the bottled water.
Let me just ask you a quick question, though. Quick question. What is it about the bottled water that the people do not like? Is it just that they're not accustomed to it, and so they, or is it that because from where I sit, the sachet water sometimes when they are kept in a certain way because they are exposed to the elements, sometimes sunlight and all of that, sometimes they start going bad. I don't know whether you know what I mean. Sometimes within a short period, they develop some odor and all of that. The bottled water, it's much more difficult for that to happen. So I'm just wondering, is it just because they are not used to it? Because water is water, right?
I am not saying we don't need or they don't like the bottled water. I'm only saying for the reason of ability for us to get it for almost everybody.
So you're looking at quantity, that's why.
Yeah, I'm looking at the economics. I'm looking at the economics. If you buy one pack of bottled water, I'm sure that can buy about 5 or 10 pieces of sachet water. That can go around families. Because even bathing the water itself, we are not too sure. People complain that they have skin itches when they bath the water directly. And so I hear Ministry of Health is bringing some tablets to use in dropping the water before people bath so that it can take away some of the effects. So it's only about the economics. It's not about the dislike of it.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we use the bottled water every day, but majority of the people who are affected, who need water, might not be used to. And it's not that it's going to destroy or do anything to their body, but it's just because of the economics. I would prefer to go and give 20 sachet of 20 bags of sachet water to a home than go give them one sachet of
I think the point is made, Maxwell. Your point is clearly made. In terms of today, for example, we'll be focusing on the health aspect, what has happened. We've spoken about education and how it's come to a standstill for those who were schooling in the affected communities, and now some of them are studying under trees because the schools that were not swept away by the water are being used as accommodation, for some of the people. We've spoken about their financial situation, but what is the health situation like? You've spoken about some who get skin irritations on the back of using the water. In terms of health, it's been said that because of the contamination of the water, there is a major health risk there. Are people safe? Are they healthy? What are the mechanisms that have been put in place? I think, is it the Minister of Health or some team has been around, right?
Yeah, the regional medical, led by Dr. Jokoto, I guess, have been around for some time, and they come to monitor situations that are around. The directorate is also on the ground, trying to see the possible situations that may arise. I hear the issue of bilharzia has risen over the period.
Wow.
Yes, has risen over the period. And then these health issues will come up definitely because of the extent of damage that has been caused by the spillage. It may not happen immediately. After some few days to a week, I'm sure those things will begin to come up. But the medical team is on the ground, and I'm sure they will be taking note of some of these things. Those things are really looming because most of the places have been affected. And so health is a challenge, education is a challenge. We have so many challenges around us. Some places have been cut off. They have eventually been made an island. Yesterday I was at one of them. I had to cruise on the river before I get to where they are. They naturally were not an island, but because the road has been inundated, flat, you can't go through it. And so I could only go through the river to get to our government, to be able to give them their supplies. And so children will not go to school because they cannot walk through the flat to be able to go to school. And Like we saw in some of the places, people have volunteered to be giving their home teaching. And I'm sure if we get some volunteers, because schools have been closed down and some teachers have left to their individual places. And so we will need volunteers to be able to take care of some of these things within the communities themselves. And so these challenges are real. And Ben, I think that we should put our thinking cap and make sure that we resolve most of these things as quickly as possible. Most sectors are, let everybody come on board. I am not seeing or hearing from interministerial committee that has been formed by government. I don't know how soon we'll be hearing from them, but I think that this is the time for them to be on the ground constantly to help us resolve the challenge that we have.
Right. Thank you, Maxwell. Let's get into the papers now. The Daily Graphic this morning, and at the tail end, I'll bring out some other issues. Baumia cut sought for 582 projects, $150 million investment across 48 districts and 6 regions. Then there's developed mining areas deliberately scrap levies on exploration, Chamber of Mines, the government, Gamanye funeral, traditional rites reach fever pitch, and road contractors refute bribery allegations. There's also Damfa on the back page. Damfa community benefits from Aswim breast screening exercise, and President Akufo-Addo's alma mater appeals to him for support. All right, so let's get into the stories. The Ghana Chamber of Mines has called on the government to be deliberate about developing mining host communities and not focus only on the revenue. The chief executive of the Ghana Chamber of Mines, Dr. Suleiman Kone, said revenue from mining communities must not be left to sink in the consolidated fund, but must be redirected into those communities to ensure development for the people. Taking a turn at the Daily Graphic Twitter or X dialogue series on the theme, what will Ghana lose if there were no mining? Dr. Kone said cities and towns where mining took place, such as Johannesburg in South Africa, had been fully developed because governments decided several years ago to transform that city with revenue from the mines. Quoting him, he says, "If we don't ask these questions, and the focus generally is on revenue, which we will get from these companies, obviously the bulk will go into the consolidated fund and only a minute portion will go back to the community." And on that point, you go to these mining communities, Takwa, go to a place like Prestia, and just look at, the town has been literally pushed onto a certain edge, and it's all mining. But you look at the communities themselves, or Boise and others, you look at the communities themselves and ask yourself, after all these years of mining, what do the communities really look like? Some of them look like ghost towns. And it has become, it's all extractive. But how about reinvesting in those communities? So that's the point there. They're calling for a scrapping of the levies on exploration. But let me just add the story on the road contractors, and then I'll come to you, Maxwell. So a group of 20 construction companies have refuted allegations by Professor Stephen Adei that contractors are made to pay bribes of about 1 million Ghana cedis before being awarded road contracts. In a release yesterday, the group said they had not experienced any such bribery attempts and that the award of road contracts were devoid of any corruption. Quote, "We wish to state clearly that none of us has had any such experience. Road contracts go through a process until the award is given," it said. Now, the group added that the process was well known and transparent and consequently made it very difficult for corrupt practices to prevail in the allocation of road contracts. This one got me laughing. Over to you, Maxwell. What are your thoughts?
Surely, it will get anybody laughing because we are all part of the system, and that is the typical attitude of a Ghanaian. For instance, whilst going around to distribute these relief items to people, there is always complaint that there are people who have not been directly affected, they are getting. Those who have been affected are not getting. So I tell the people, if they mention anybody's name and then you know that the person has not been directly affected by the flood, tell us so that we will refuse giving the item to the people. They won't say. After everybody's gone, they will come back and tell you, hey, you mentioned people and they really were not affected. I say, why didn't you say? You say you want me to say so that they will victimize me. So that is the typical Ghanaian problem. These road contractors, we have all been in Ghana. We know the things that happen. We know the situations we face. These things are real. Plus, Adei, why would he go telling lies? For what reason? Some of us have been contractors, we know the things we go through. And so it's always a Ghanaian problem, always behaving like ostriches, burying our head in the sand, and then our whole body is up there. The truth, we don't like to speak about it to be able to turn things around. People always want to cover up the other people, and we keep going, and it's not the best. It is high time we begin to name and shame so that some of these things will go away. The contractors themselves will not be happy to be paying bribes to anybody to be able to get contract. But when these things come out, they shy away from the discussion, and the people who are at the top there keep doing it. And I think that we have to confront the issue head on. I like the spirit of some of our elderly people who are speaking up now. Atukuba spoke. This Tamaklo, Nyahu Tamaklo spoke. The rest of the senior men in society are speaking. And I like it when they speak because they say that they are disappointed the youth. And it's high that they begin to speak the truth so that we can speak truth to power. But if we who are being affected are denying these things and shy away, or for political expediency, I don't know how long we'll continue to pretend. So it's a bad situation for us. Now to the mining community, yes, like you mentioned, we've all been to some few mining communities and we know the deprivation that we experience in these communities. They are not developed. They are not developing. You go to only the quarters of the mining company workers themselves and you see some semblance of life there. But within the township itself, the roads are bad, facilities are not available, things are not there. I don't know what arrangement they have in terms of corporate social responsibility so that nice parks will be built for you to go play, cinema hall, centers, and all those things. You don't see those things. The roads are bad, they're so dusty, and people fall sick out of the things that happen in the environment. The water bodies are so contaminated with cyanide and other chemicals. And it's live farms can't grow, crops can't grow well in farms because all the land is so saturated with chemicals. And it always looks like a ghost town. And so, like he said, I think the government should begin to look at some of these things. And so the majority of the levies that are taken from these mining companies can be plowed back to the communities and used to develop them better. Because they take so much revenue from them. And the indigenous themselves, the landlords, the landowners themselves, should also have some around them. But unfortunately, we don't see it. Even those who go to do the galamsey, they do it there, they go back to their individual homes, go and build big homes and develop their cities. And the places that they are there, taking the mirrors from themselves are left wallowing in poverty and all that. So I think we have to begin to look at some of our policy directions and make sure that people themselves benefit from it.
Let me wrap
our place, for instance, water is being like Agodome, for instance. That is where water is being processed and sent to most of the communities. But the question is that the people immediately around the place, how are they benefiting? The last time I went there, they were complaining that they still pay water bills. Meanwhile, they are the ones from whom the water is being generated. Some of these things we need to look at them so that the immediate environment of where these resources are coming from have some benefit to themselves.
I want us to wrap with the daily graphic quickly, and Maxwell, we do not have too much time, so I'd like bite-sized responses so we can proceed and look at many more stories. On page 9, let's go on the international front. Israel-Hamas. Now, Israel demands resignation of UN chief over Hamas attack comments, and Israel has reacted angrily to comments made by the UN Secretary General about the Gaza war at the Security Council. Antonio Guterres said yesterday that he condemned unequivocally Hamas's deadly attacks in Israel two weeks ago, but that it was important to recognize they, quote, did not happen in a vacuum. Now, the Israeli ambassador, Gilad Erdan, accused him of, quote, justifying terrorism and demanded his immediate resignation. Yesterday, Mr. Guterres rejected, quote, misrepresentations of his statement. Quoting him, he says, I am shocked by these misrepresentations by some of my statement yesterday in the Security Council, as if I were justifying acts of terror by Hamas. He said, this is false. It was the opposite. I believe it was necessary to set the record straight, especially out of respect to the victims and to their families. But yesterday, We had an interaction, my colleague Evan Spencer had an interaction with the Israeli ambassador, Shlomit Sufa. And two things she said. She said, is on the Israel-Hamas war, this is not the time to talk about peace. If you know, the IDF has been standing on the border, basically awaiting the command for ground forces to enter Palestine. She says this is no time to talk about peace on the back of that attack by Hamas. And then how does she feel about Hamas? She says she's, of course, reiterated what Israel has been saying, that they are a terrorist group and that Hamas is not an entity you can reason with. What is your take on all this?
This Israel-Hamas war, Israel-Palestine war, it's been over the period, and I don't know what goes into the mind of Hamas when they go into attack Israel, because you should know that they won't sit down and look at these things without reacting. You should prepare for an equal reaction. It's like the third law of motion. Action and reaction are equal but opposite. So once you go, you should expect that Israel will come back and attack you. So I really don't know what went into them for them to think that they could just attack and go scot-free. It's unfortunate the situation we are seeing. Like they said, the time for talking about peace is past. Now it is action against action. Unfortunately though, but I don't see Israel coming to the table soon wanting to talk peace with Hamas. It's past, it's over. I'm sure after a while they may want to come back to the negotiating table and talk about peace too. But it's unfortunate. I really don't know.
But in the midst of saying all of that, I understand what you're saying. But in the midst of that, there are international conventions. There have been accusations, for example, of Israel using white phosphorus in certain parts, which, though it is allowed in combat, has its negative effects because it is highly flammable and it can burn, people practically to ashes. There has been talk about, we know the international conventions also, that you don't kill a fly with a sledgehammer. In other words, reactions must also be proportional to what has been done. We know there are some 200 or a little less of hostages still that have been taken. Some of them American, Israeli, from different parts of the world still being held by Hamas. So the focal point is this is a humanitarian crisis, especially on the Palestinian side, but in a subtle way on the Israeli side, because a lot of people too lost families. Some of the kibbutzes have been invaded and they are still in shock and all of that. But how do we resolve all of this without being so vociferous, if you like, or being so forceful in all of this, for lack of a better word? I don't know. You can understand the standpoint of Israel, but at the same time, there's a humanitarian crisis and life must be protected. Final thoughts?
Yeah, Benjamin, in as much as there are international conventions, sometimes going to war, you choose your opponent very wisely. It's always said that there is no fairness in war and love. And so when there is an issue of war, fairness sometimes is thrown to the dogs. It's later that they come back to talk about it. You should know who you are going to fight with. You should know what Israel can do. You know what they have. You all know what Israel has. So you don't go and provoke them. They will come back at you strongly. And that is exactly what we are seeing now. And so that's my problem with Hamas. I really don't know what went into their thinking for them to think that they can go strike Israel and go scot-free. It's unfortunate. Yes, there are international conventions to be respected, even in war. But we are not seeing it now because the people have been provoked. I am not justifying anything Israel is doing. But at the end of the day, I am saying that you choose your enemy wisely. I'm not sure Hamas did serious soul searching before going to attack the way they are doing.
Well, let's get into other papers now. Daily Guide, NIB liquidation claims force. That's according to the majority. The minority has dug its heels in on that bit. We'll see how when all of these things happen. I always say that with time, we'll get to see where the truth lies and who is being duplicitous or deceptive. Contractors reject Adei's bribe claims. That story we've already done. There's CJ bounces OSP. And there's also Baumia cut sword for $150 million Soko project. On the back page, Roma fined for ball boys' slow tactics. And Jesus charges Arsenal to win Champions League. There's also Vinny Jr. will soon win Ballon d'Or. I don't know about that though. He's good, but I don't know. I don't know. If I compare him to the likes of Kylian Mbappe and the rest, I would choose a Kylian Mbappe over a Vinicius Junior. But of course, there are different metrics that could lead to a win. All-Star Festival begin early preparation with global tour. But that bit about Roma, so as Roma have been fined 10,000 euros by Serie A after their ball boys, AS Roma, after their ball boys purposely slowed down Sunday's league game against Monza. Jose Mourinho's side secured a dramatic 1-0 win over that club thanks to Stefan El Shaarawy's winner in the 90th minute. Italy's sporting judge ruled that Roma's ball boys took too much time to get the ball back after the home side had scored the winning goal. And for that, they've been fined 10,000 euros. I'm just wondering what would have happened in Ghana. Anyway, let me take these two stories and then we can say goodbye to the Daily Guide newspaper. So, the majority in Parliament has denied assertions by the minority counterpart that the government intends to liquidate the National Investment Bank owing to insolvency and poor corporate governance. Deputy Ranking Member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Isaac Adongo, who made the allegations, said the government was colluding with the Bank of Ghana to merge the Agricultural Development Bank and the NIB, which he claimed could lead to about 800 job losses. Now, in response to the allegations, the Majority Chief Whip, Frank Anodompre, said the claims by the minority were baseless and that the government had made no decision in that regard. The second story. The Chief Justice, Gertrude Tokonu, has dismissed the petition sent to her by the Office of the Special Prosecutor to remove Justice Edward Chum from the ongoing case between the office and former Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia Abnadapa, and her husband, Daniel Osei Kufuor. Now, although the full content of the CJ's decision is not known, the OSP in a social media post indicated that, quote, by a letter dated October 25, 2023, the Judicial Secretary informed the Special Prosecutor that the Chief Justice was unable to accede to the Office of the Special Prosecutor's request for His Lordship Justice Edward Chum to be recused and removed from all cases involving the OSP pending before him. Quick reactions.
Yeah, so about the issue of CJ and the OSP, it's a banter we have seen for long, and I am happy the tangent at which the OSP is going, and I just hope and pray that it's not a charade. At the end of the day, something positive will come up. We hear some of these things, and seriously, at the backdrop of the exoneration given originally by the president, I'm not too sure what's happening, but I just hope that these things are done in the best of shape so that we can get something good out of this case of the CJ. It's quite unfortunate what we see on daily basis happening between the CJ and then the OSP. I think that they should bring some finality to these things.
All right. Let's get into some other stories. I want to, and in fact, talking about the CJ, let me just reference some of what the retired Justice of the Supreme Court, Atuguba, has been sharing. He has said that the James Jachikwason decision by the Supreme Court was, with all respect, scandalous in that that court, in the teeth of the settled maxim res judicata et non quieta movere, re-adjudicated the same matter that has been adjudicated upon by the High Court on the merits. That's the first point. So he's had his concerns about that. He's also spoken about the fact that the executive's strong presence, the executive, that is the executive arm of government, its strong presence on the Judicial Council doesn't make it independent. And again, that the notion that the Supreme Court is politically tilted towards the NPP has some truth in there. How do you react? Since we're talking about the CJ.
Yeah. So like we said, the courts, we can't be too sure of the way things go. Sometimes we, who are not the legal luminaries, we speak our non-legal minds, but they will listen to you. They will just tell you whatever they have done is right. And so we watch on. So they say if the toad comes from the water to come to tell you that the crocodile has given birth, who are you not to believe? And so he's been there. He has seen it all. He was at one point the most senior on the bench. And today, if you see that some of the things that are happening are not the best, it's only confirming what some of us have said earlier. The Domahini case, for instance, he's spoken about it. Why do you go chastising Jatikwesi, who has really renunciated his certificate before going to an election? How can a whole Supreme Court go to that extent, questioning or not minding a high court decision and just go and take another decision? You speak about it, they will say you are not a judge, you are not a lawyer. The law lies in the bosom of the judge, and so that is what they have done. And now that Atuguba is speaking about it, yes, and he has confirmed what John Dramani Mahama has said earlier, that it seems to be tilted towards the MPP and most of the situations.
But at any point in time, any administration comes into power, there would be some tilt, wouldn't there? So we should get beyond the tilting, regardless of political, partisanship or political parties. Isn't that where we should get to?
Yeah, that's where we should get to. And for some of us, whether you are political or not political, the law is the law. You might have to be seen to be applying the law. But if at the end of the day, the ordinary people feel that the law is not being applied, because what is the law? It's an exoneration of common sense, isn't it? The law is an exoneration of common sense. So beyond technicalities, the law is the law. We should all know what it is. So if you apply and majority of us feel that it's being done because of one person or the other, then it doesn't really serve us the way we want it to serve us. So yes, we should go beyond politicizing the bench and making sure that people, like he suggested, people should go to the bench based on merit. There should be some independent body that promotes people to the bench. But if you see known political activists who have ever stood to be MPs on a ticket of a particular political party being brought to the bench, then who are you not to say that the bench is political?
I get the point you're making. What you said though about the law always exonerating common sense. I can tell you that sometimes that is not necessarily the case. The letter of the law may sometimes sound or appear not to be common sense, but that is the law, and that is that. He also made mention of the fact that, in terms of seniority, when the Chief Justice is not available, the most senior, steps in line. There have been some things that have been done here and there, but with time, I guess we'll be able to streamline that. We have to go in just about a minute. I want to squeeze in these two stories, very brief reactions, and we're gone. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, 6 secessionists convicted, 4 others discharged, sentencing deferred to November the 1st, and 6 out of the 10 persons standing trial for attempting to secede part of the Volta and Oti regions from Ghana have been convicted by the High Court in Accra. And those are the charges they've been slapped with. Then the Business Finder newspaper, Students' Loan Trust begins prosecution of employers. That story on page 4. And the Students' Loan Trust has taken a significant step in ensuring the repayment of student loans by initiating legal proceedings against employers who have failed to comply with the recovery of student loans from beneficiaries in the formal sector under the Students' Loan Trust Fund Act 2011. That is Act 820. You have some 20-30 seconds to react, then we're gone. Maxwell.
Especially about this student loan scheme, it's been so helpful to some of us. The more brothers who went to school, we have to rely on this to get to. I don't know.
But paying back is the problem.
Yes, paying back should be a matter of exigency. Because when I left school and I started working, I just walked into the office one day, dropped everything that I owe, and that was the end of it. The more you keep it, the more you attract a lot of interest over it, and the more difficult it becomes for you to pay. So once you make some money, you just walk in there, drop it, pay it off, and then walk away. So that you give opportunity to even your guarantor. Now, I don't know what the guarantor system is do. I hear at the point they were scrapping it. Whether it's true or not, I'm not too sure about that. So that you give some room to your guarantor. People suffered because they guaranteed for students who never went back to redeem the loans, and then they had to forfeit their salaries and this thing. So if the rule states that the employers should pay and they don't, yes, they can go after them and redeem, so that other new ones of us coming after us can benefit from this loan scheme. It's helped so many of us, and I'm sure it will help much more of our younger
Maxwell, ones. We have to go now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I love that passionate plea at the end as far as the students' loan is concerned. Do right by the Students' Loan Trust so that others can also benefit. Maxwell Lukuto is the NDC's parliamentary candidate-elect for South Tong, and he joined us for a conversation this morning. Well, right before we veer into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us to bring you this segment, and they're offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening as well. Locate them here in Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Chrono Mabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takra de Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswe and Esiamanzama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Well, bringing us to the start of sports with Mubarak Haruna. Do stay.